Manufacturing Matters is an MFG Radio Network production brought to you by GIE Media's Manufacturing Group as industry experts take deep dives into the latest manufacturing matters, whether it's new innovations, products, technologies, and emerging markets that help you understand better why manufacturing matters to you and also to the top companies in the medical, aerospace, defense, and electric vehicle manufacturing industries. Hello and welcome to the latest discussion from GIE Media's Manufacturing Group, a primer on defense contract manufacturing. I'm Jake Kaufman, the managing editor for GIE Media's Manufacturing Group of magazines that includes aerospace manufacturing and design, today's medical developments, defense and munitions, and our online publication, EV Design and Manufacturing. Today, you'll learn how to enter defense manufacturing, and that will offer clear opportunities for U.S. manufacturers to increase revenue as domestic and international defense budgets have reached record highs. We'd like to thank today's sponsors for their series sponsorship, as Renishaw and Amphenol CIT have offered that today. You can transform your manufacturing. Renishaw is a world-leading supplier of measuring systems and production systems. Its products give high accuracy and precision, gathering data to provide customers and end users the traceability and confidence in what they're making. The technology helps customers innovate products and processes. It is a global business with over 5,000 employees located in 36 countries, where it has wholly owned subsidiary operations. The majority of R&D work takes place in the UK, with the largest manufacturing sites located in the UK, Ireland, and India. Renishaw is guided by its purpose, transforming tomorrow together. This means working with customers to make products, create the materials, and develop the therapies that are going to be needed for the future. For more information, you can go to renishaw.com. Also, Amphenol CIT, formerly known as Carlisle Interconnect Technologies, is a global leader in designing and manufacturing high-performance wire and cable, including optical fiber. With more than 80 years of experience, the company offers a comprehensive product portfolio featuring specialty and filtered connectors, contacts, integrated systems, cable assemblies, complex harnesses, racks, avionics trays, and installation kits. Now part of Amphenol, the company is more committed than ever to excellence, providing top-tier, lightweight, and durable products that harness the harshest environments. They also offer engineering and certification services for commercial aerospace, military, industrial, test and measurement, and space industries. Today, we are glad to be joined by Pete Borden, who is a veteran of the American manufacturing industry. During his tenure in the machine tool industry, Pete has been the owner of a regional distributorship and an importer of large machines that were sold across the country. He also has served as the president of the AMTDA, the American Machine Tool Dealers Association, which merged with AMT, the Association for Manufacturing Technology. In 2013, he also returned to Cincinnati to become the VP and strategic sales or VP of strategic sales for the General Tool Company, a privately held built-to-print manufacturer, which today specializes in large aerospace and defense parts. Borden also serves on the boards of the Navy League of Cincinnati and the Aircraft Carrier and Submarine Industrial Supplier Coalitions. Pete, thanks for joining us today. The floor is all yours.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Delighted to see you, and let's talk a little bit about this large size industry. Just before we jump into the slides, I might say, there have been a lot of articles about the defense industrial base. The Wall Street Journal and many periodicals have talked about the decline in the defense industrial base. There are thousands of companies that have left that space, either for want of skilled labor or some of the manufacturing just being too tough. So the DoD and the Prime need your help, our help, and there is a great demand for these parts. You're probably making parts that are very similar to these right now. So how do you get into defense manufacturing? They will not make it easy for you, but with some perseverance and some planning, I think you can get through this. I think for starters, I would recommend that you create a team and In addition to business development and marketing, I think you also need some assistance and backing from your accounting and financial group, your CFO, and probably your program or project management group. You're certainly going to have to keep careful records, and let's jump into this. So the first slide I put up was the top 10 contractors to the federal government. You can Google top 100 contractors to the DoD, but this is just an example of some of the big guys. And those, of course, are billions that we're talking about there. Many of these have thousands and thousands of employees. I think Lockheed Martin is over 100,000. You have to also be aware that there's been a lot of consolidation here. So when you see the name General Dynamics, that includes several groups, one of which is Electric Boat, who's the manufacturer of the nuclear submarines in Groton and Quonset Point. Raytheon owns Pratt & Whitney and Collins Aerospace now. Northrop Grumman has bought the old Orbital ATK group. McKesson is not a military supplier, but anyhow, you get the drift there. There are a lot of companies. So just to let you know who's out there. There's been lots of consolidation, as I said. So let's go to the next slide, Jake. So I'm kind of a trade show junkie, and I think that's a great place to meet people. I don't need to click on each of these. Defense. So I've been to almost all these, and would recommend you might try some of them. Defense manufacturing. That moves around. I would give that probably a B. Space Symposium is great if you want to look into missiles and space work. Although that's very expensive. That's $2,000 to $3,000 unless you can get someone to sponsor you and go as their guest. Surface Navy is in January in Washington. Obviously, that's covering destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and aircraft carriers. So a lot of big shipbuilders there, and their support group as well. Marine machinery, I've not been to, but I've heard very good things about that. But shipbuilding is becoming more and more important. You might look at that. Submarine and aircraft carrier industrial base. You can look at those two websites. You can join those organizations and learn more about them. Just as an example, Huntington Ingalls this year is going to outsource over 1 million hours of subcontract work. So lots of different areas and disciplines and things that they're looking for. The Army show is AUSA. October is the time when they meet in Washington. Then they have a spring meeting in Huntsville. You can go onto those websites and find out who's exhibiting and what they're exhibiting, and you can get names of attendees as well. Sea, Air, and Space is really the big one. You get 15,000 people in Washington. It's at the Gaylord, actually south of Washington in Maryland at National Harbor. And all the big primes are there. NASA and the Missile Defense Agency. Missile Defense Agency is in Huntsville. They have a $9 billion budget. So we want to talk about them a little later on. Excellent website. The Defense Logistic Organization, DLA, is the administrator for SAM. SAM is the government agency. So sorry about all the acronyms, but that is the System for Award Management. And you can look that up. They have new postings for parts all the time, and a lot of opportunities there. So let's go to the next one. So I get daily blogs from many of these groups, and these will highlight major weapons systems. So it'll be 1 or 2 pages with a short explanation. They also have paid subscriptions that are several $100s. AIA is a very large organization. NDIA is a great one to join. The Navy League. So we'll look at these here in a second. Air Force AFRL is the Air Force Research Lab, which is at Wright-Patterson. That's in Dayton. And they receive the majority of the research and development funding for the Air Force. And the Army, which we talked about, the Army show. This month, I believe this week or next, you have a workboat show in New Orleans. Some of our people have gone to that and have enjoyed that and gotten some good contacts. But again, memberships in many of these organizations are under $100 a year. So I'd suggest that that you consider signing up for them. So let's go to some of those links right now. Let's look at the Defense Insider Daily. So here it is right here. So if you can page down there. So there's some news about the Trident, which is the submarine missile system. Farther down is the Arleigh Burke. So let me stop there and say, so that's Huntington Ingalls, which is Bath Iron Works, and Pascagoula. DDG-51 is a destroyer. It's a ship that's been around for 30 years. They're building a lot of those. There's information about that. It's also called the Arleigh Burke class. So they're little snippets that, if you've got one of these companies as a customer, there is Leonardo DRS mentioned. Go up a little bit, Jake. So they're working on some radars. So I just take a look at these every day to get a sense of whether or not there's anything that affects our business or any of our suppliers. Okay, let's go to NDIA.org. So that is the National Defense Industries Association, very large, powerful group, very well connected. They have great meetings. They have small business meetings. Yeah, I'll go ahead and click on that, Jake. So you can see what's coming up. So they have small arms, munitions. There's a cyber meeting. But if you go to any of those, you'll meet some very good influencers with different companies. Excuse me. So they also have a monthly magazine, robotics. So NDIA is a great item. There's a submarine and supplier meeting in December that they're advertising. So next, let's go to the Navy League. This is about a $50 or $60 cost per year. You receive a yearbook that details all the Navy defense and weapons systems and who's manufacturing. There are over 250 Navy leagues around the country, so you may have one in your city and not know about it. I'd recommend you consider joining that. If you go on down, there's Sea, Air, and Space. So click on that. So they have great speakers. You'll find. So there's seminars you can attend, and There it is at the Gaylord next April. There is a cost, but it's minimal if you're a member. And scroll down, you'll see some excerpts of speakers, and Secretary of the Navy is usually talking about programs. You can sit at a lunch table and sit next to a commanding officer of a ship. It's very patriotic, and it's a wonderful meeting to go to. So I'd certainly recommend you consider that one. Okay, let's go back to the slides and talk about certifications. So how do you become certified? Let's just step through this. There are company websites, and we'll take a look at one after this, but ExoStar and Ariba are two third-party programs which you can subscribe to. ExoStar has a cost, but Ariba also. So you have to go through a pretty extensive password and background information to get on there, but you get a dashboard of companies. So you get RFQs, you'll get POs, you'll get changes. So those are very useful tools to have. Every one of these companies has a small business office. They are incentivized to do business with not only small businesses, that's a company under 500 employees, but also businesses with other classifications that we'll talk about. Your NAICS codes are very important, and you can look those up. 332710 is the general machine shop item, but if you are in precision turning or do some welding, or in the case of Amphenol, you do electronics, then when you're doing your SAM registration, you can enter those NAICS codes and receive bids for requests that relate to those NAICS codes. So it's a very important thing to have. DFARS and ITAR. So that's a biggie. International Trade and Arms Restriction, the Defense Department Trade Compliance. It's an annual certification, $2,250, administered by the State Department. We'll look at their website shortly. But that's an absolute must that you have that. The next one is Form 2345. This is a 5-year license. The DFARS is only a 1-year. But the joint certification is what that's called, and it's joint because it's a combination of Canada and the United States. There are a number of steps you have to go through for that one. It's a little more difficult to get, but very important. And when you get a request for a quote and you'll receive a certification, they want to know if you have your JCP. So SAM registration is an annual certification that the government has. You can look that up under sam.gov. You can put in all your NAICS codes. And there is a local PTAC office, and that's run by a program called Apex. We'll take a look at that. And then the Federal Biz Ops. So there was a website, you're probably familiar with it or may have been. That's been replaced by the SAM website now. I'll also mention GIDEP, which, sorry about the mouthful, but that's the Government Industry Data Exchange Program. And some primes want to know if you're registered on GIDEP. There is no charge for that, but there's an awful lot of information on there. So when you're doing these and you run into a brick wall, like I have very often, you can call 800 numbers. People will answer the phone in Washington, or you can send an email and they'll explain what they want. Sometimes they may want a copy of your incorporation documents or something like that. So let's go to, let me see. So we wanted to go to, Jake, I think we want to go to Lockheed.com or LMCO.com. So let's look at their supplier website. So up in the top right of the drop down there. So page down and you'll see getting connected, business procurement, cybersecurity. So this is very typical of other types of companies, Raytheon, et cetera, have these types of links as well. I would say that although I've registered on some of these, I've never really received anything significant in terms of an RFQ there. So, but you do have to get registered. People will ask if you've registered, and so you can touch on that. Let's while we're there, let's go to the terms and conditions. I don't want to make you ill here, but terms and conditions are important. So click on that one. So this is going to be an effort for your legal group to be able to look at these and see what they have for terms. You see down below there, they're listing FAR, DFAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation, FAR. So those are items that we'll touch on here briefly. And so you're going to have to be doing some reading here. Next, Jake, let's go to the ITAR PMC. Okay, here we go. Great. So page down into this. And so they're in the middle under export your goods. So if you have ITAR, you can do export work. There are some hurdles to step through, but register your business. So click on that, Jake. And how to enroll. You'll have to do a password and get a dual factor identity check and do that through your phone or other type apps that we'll talk about here. But it just something you have to step through. So this will take some time and effort, but it's part of the requirement. Okay. The SAM, let's see, Jake, do you have that page? So I'm just going to mention this. So there's a login that you have to use that explains it up at the top right, and passwords and whatnot. And then you put in a NAICS code and you look under different departments, DOD, DLA, and you can look for contracts. The other positive that I found is you find out who is getting contracts. And you could call on someone who's got a weapons contract or something for the Patriot missile, and you can go to them and ask about subcontract. So SAM is a very powerful tool. The PTAC support system will help you. Jake, do you have the PTAC there, or we're gonna, yeah, good, thank you. So there it is, Apex Accelerators. And this is a group that's funded by the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Those are MEPs in every state and every area. So there's a map, and you can call. So there's Columbus, Cincinnati, but they're ones in all over the country, and they will assist you in registering for SAM. but probably more importantly, they can help you on how to navigate and find tricks and tips to find out about potential opportunities and contracts that are out there. So that's an important tool to use. Okay, I think we're done with that slide right now. So let's go to something called that I call certs and reps. So you will receive annual requests from these companies, from the primes, from the DoD, to make sure that you meet requirements. Sometimes you get them for every RFQ. You'll have to supply corporate information. They want to know about accounting systems. What kind of political contributions are you making? Do you have any lawsuits against you? They'll also ask sometimes for your financial information. They want to know if you're an inverted corporation. That means, are you owned by a foreign entity? There is an 80% rule. The 80% rule is if 80% of your corporate backlog or your business or $25 million, either one is with the defense industry, then you have to fill in your company's financial detailed information. So that's why your CFO becomes important. The quality certs, obviously, you have to have those. We'll talk about those on the next slide. The next one we've talked about, ITAR, joint certification, NAICS. What's your CAGE code? I'm sure you know that now. Under SAM, you get something called a UEI, Unique Employer Identification, your EIN, which is your Social Security. And will you meet the federal regulations? Those are called FARs and DFARs, Federal Acquisition Regulation, or Defense Foreign Acquisition Regulations. Cyber, of course, that's part of the landscape today. They'll ask you what your SPARS score is. The maximum is 110. There is a new certification out for that. We'll touch on that. Conflict minerals seems like minutia possibly, but there are surveys and they want to know if you're buying materials from certain non-allied nations. And this is part of the Dodd-Frank bill from many years ago. So typically, if you're getting material from your customer, that's not an issue. So most of the time, there are no problems there. Also, I'd suggest that when you're doing your certs and also for generally talking to different defense companies, you should really have your capabilities defined on one page. And what are your differentiators? What do you do better than anyone else? So that's an important document to have. You probably already have a capability statement that you use. So, but that's a handy tool that I've used. Let's go next, Jake. Okay, quality requirements. I think everybody has some familiarity with this, but I mentioned the specific ones, the ISO 9000, 9001, the 9100 Rev D, 2016 is, of course, the aerospace requirement, although there are some suggestions about revising that right now, making it more stringent. So I also made a note there, even though you may not have these certs, if you've got quality processes in place, this may satisfy the requirements. So that is sometimes a little footnote, and you can talk to the people that are asking for the information, and there is some flexibility there until you receive those certs. I know they take time and financial investment. They would like probably a copy of your quality manual. If you have that written, if you don't have it written, you should certainly do that. They want to know how you deal with non-conformances, counterfeit materials. A lot of times they'll want the material certs. Do you do incoming inspections? How do you deal with foreign debris, with FOD items? So the paperwork, as you can tell with all this, that the paperwork becomes more of an effort, and so we'll talk about that a little bit. NADCAP is an important certification. Not only covers welding and non-destructive testing, but covers heat treat if you're doing that, or if you sub it out. Certainly your sub-supplier has to have that cert. Also for coatings. That's an important characteristic on a lot of these parts. And as I say down below, your sub-suppliers may need them. And you may need for them to also fill out certs. So you may also need to audit them as well. The DCMA are the government inspectors, and they will come in and look under your fingernails and in all kinds of places to see if you've met all the quality certs. So they can be what's the word for that? They can be close inspections. So they're sometimes very demanding. Next, we just touch base on cyber. I think everybody's been cybered to death the last 3 years. They have finally produced a final draft of what's going to be required. You know, we've all seen things for covered, unclassified, classified documents. Everything is under the 800 171. The DFAR is 252 7012. I'd recommend, if you don't have this in-house, that you consider third-party resources to help you. And you also have to make an effort to train your entire workforce. When our company, our company's cyber people will send out fake emails to see if anyone clicks on them. And if they do, then they have to go back for cyber training. Cyber insurance is probably important because you will be hacked. People probably have already tried to get into your system, but if you're doing defense work, that's going to multiply. So that's a factor. All right, let's talk about contract issues. Next, terms and conditions. So the FAR, DFAR, we've already talked about, will require some legal assistance. Contractual language. Do you really want to indemnify Lockheed Martin? Probably not. So again, you have to read the terms and conditions. What are the offsets? Can they deduct money if they need to fix something on a part that you've shipped them? What are rights of termination? What are the warranties that you guarantee? So these are important things to be aware of. A lot of times these guys accept, well, I know with a quotation, you'll typically send your terms and conditions, but they will say our terms and conditions take precedent. So we've already shown you the Lockheed Martin website, Raytheon as well. So happy to talk about that if you have any questions on it. The company status becomes important. I mentioned that up above, but are you a small business, a hub zone? Meaning your location, are you veteran, Native American, women owned? So all those will receive a nod, and the defense primes are incentivized to do business with smaller minority-owned companies. And if you have that status, it will help you. Absolutely. Next, please, Jake. Okay, let's do some research here. After we finish these slides, we'll look at CRS. The Navy League Yearbook we've talked about is a great resource, has all the weapons and systems for the Navy and who is manufacturing them. Missile Defense Agency.mil has conferences in Alabama, but if you click on that, you'll see small business. You can register there, receive bids. Same with NASA. NAVSEA, NAVAIR, NAVSUP. Those are subdivisions of the Navy that buy a lot of materials. Some are through SAM, some are through separate bids, some are through primes. So if you want to look at primes, we were looking at Lockheed locations before, and they're located in 45 states. So they have dozens and dozens of different branches, and some are offices, some are manufacturing. A lot of people work remotely for these big primes. So you could spend your life on one company or work on several different ones. So it's a big ocean out there to swim in with these guys. So Jake, let's take a look at the congressional research. This is a tool that I've enjoyed using. And if you want to find out about systems, so if you want to type in Navy ships, so there's a search bar there. Search, and these reports come out 2 or 3 times a year. And so they have all the background on different systems on the ships. There's a defense primer, Department of the Navy. So that is a great overview. It's good for you to explain to business development people and to give them items. So some of these reports are 2 or 3 pages. Some are 50 to 100 pages. If you go to submarines, Jake, you'll see things about the Virginia and Columbia class. There's another next generation that they're designing. So this is 50 or 60 pages. The Columbia is the #1 defense program or priority of the Navy and the Department of Defense right now. This ship is running late, and they need parts, and they need them quickly. Maybe you've seen submarines.com, where they're trying to hire thousands and thousands of workers, especially for welding work. Missiles, if you type in missiles, you can get an overview of different missile systems, foreign missile systems, hypersonics. You want to find out what China's missiles are doing. So you'll be doing a lot of reading. It's not a bad thing. You know, I think we're all, you know, in this business, I think we're all very patriotic. So it's great to read about this, and that's one of the reasons I like it so much. Okay, let's go back to the slides, Jake. Okay, so I think we've covered that, smallbusiness.gov. So in the last 10 to 15 minutes, we want to take some questions and touch on some other items. So I would summarize by saying, so you want to learn the market, you want to become certified, you want to register as a supplier, you want to keep your technology safe with good cyber security, you have to manage the contracts, and you probably need a project or program manager for these contracts. The customers want reports in MS Project, and so more paperwork, more quality. As I think as a result, you probably need to raise your prices if you're going to be doing this, because it's going to take more time and people and overhead. So, these are sales 101 items. Pack your patience, use sales basics. People have asked me, gee, can I use AI and get a name of a important contact at Lockheed and reach out to him? I've not had success with that. I think good voicemails and emails. No one likes cold calling, but you're going to be doing some of that to reach new companies. Differentiate your company, as I mentioned before. No, you can't call 1-800-Lockheed, but certainly you can do this. They need suppliers. I receive a lot of voicemails that are unintelligible, and they just want to talk about them. They don't want to talk about what they can do for me. So you have to really show your value. Again, that's what I would call sales 101. Authentication. When you're doing these things, you'll either get a text, but there are a couple of apps that they've asked to download. One is Okta, the other is Duo. You'll have to do that for the ITAR work. So I think we've got about 15 minutes left. Jake, how about a question or two?
Yes, so it looks like we do have some coming into the Q&A box at the bottom of our Zoom screen. So Barbara wants to know, we realize that we need to increase our quote due to extra time, effort, and cost, but is the customer constantly wanting us to decrease the price? How do you kind of go about doing
that? Yeah, that's not terribly different from anyone else. Occasionally you can say, what's my target? Do you have a target on these parts? When you get the prints, you're going to look at the prints. Is it a new part, a new system? Their systems are always late, so they will get it late to you. But deadlines are tight. They typically want a quote in a week. And many times that's very hard to do if you've got dozens of prints. Typically, the defense companies say they want to buy the best value. So they are not regularly buying low price. They won't buy high price, but it's a mixture of delivery and quality, and certainly your experience and of course price. So I hope I answered that for you, Barbara. But it's pretty normal sales dialogue with those buyers, and they love to keep salespeople at arm's length.
Yeah.
But, like build personal relationships, and then you'll build some trust.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Tyler also has a few questions. He wants to know if you have any tips for researching which agencies and primes they should target for their marketing efforts. They've tried using usaspending.gov and fpds.gov, but they were given way too much information to sift through.
Okay, so go back a little bit. So he wants to know what agencies to,
Yes, which agencies and primes should they target with marketing efforts?
yeah. Um, it kind of depends on your parts, or your expertise. Are you fabricating, machining, welding? Are the parts electronics? Are they large items? I think if you go to the shows, you'll get a sense of that. And as well as subscribing to some of those things like NDIA and the Navy information. So you'll get an idea. I mean, if you looked at the advertisers in some of those magazines, they're probably a little different than in Jake's magazine, but yeah, I've used those third parties before and found that as had that experience also. I'd be happy to take that offline and talk to you about that, or talk to you about your products and try to assist you there.
Okay. Also, Tyler was wondering, once a small business has targeted an agency or a prime that they'd like to work with, what strategies would you suggest they use to get on the list to start receiving RFQs?
Yeah, you're going to have to reach the buyers and program managers, and so that's where I've used meetings and trade shows to get those. But I would start with the small business offices. Those guys would always try to go to that Prime's website and look for small business liaisons. When if you attend the meeting at the Missile Defense Agency, they will typically have 10 or 15 small business people from the primes who are there, who can steer you to different things.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
keep an idea on that.
Okay, and then the final question from Tyler before we get to a few more was,
No, Tyler, there are only two questions. No, go ahead.
yeah. So you mentioned reviewing a contract, but most small businesses have little to no leverage when they are negotiating these contracts. How do you recommend that small businesses, are safe and don't assume or accept a risky contractual requirement?
Well, you should probably, I think you need to have an attorney review it. So for example, if they send you a print and they say you need to indemnify, pick a company, Northrop Grumman, but it's their design. I mean, you can't protect them for if you build it to their design and it doesn't work, that's not your fault. So you're going to have to learn some contract basics. And I hate to I hate to just give you the panacea of talk to your lawyer, because I know that's several $100 an hour probably. But I think organizations like if you belong to a trade association or NDIA, some of those groups should help you with guidance through those. But you're just going to have to plow through some of those very unreadable, put you to sleep contracts. They can be tough. Yeah. But some people won't let you take any exceptions. I recognize that. So sometimes if you're trying to get into a customer, you have to bite the bullet and say, we accept your terms.
Mm.
And I would put some extra time on your delivery because, I mean, one question might arise, gee, does anyone ever give you a delivery penalty? I mean, people certainly do that with machine tools, for example. General Electric is notorious. Sorry if anybody from GE is on the line, but their C64 contract terms are very antagonistic, and yeah, you're not going to accept late delivery penalties or offsets typically. So sometimes you have to say no as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so then John also wants to know the DoD data strategy is pushing away from the use of traditional drawings for spec parts and wants to use a 3D based model. What is the time frame that you see this transition happening, and are there resources for small suppliers to learn more about that transition?
Yeah, I don't think I'm a good source to answer that for him. Obviously, your programming CAD engineering department needs to be able to handle step drawings and those types of protocols. So we receive most of our requests from primes. So we're not getting that data from the DoD. So I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that, sir.
Okay, gotcha. And another question coming in from Asim. He wants to know, would you recommend consultancies to help through the process?
Sure, depending on what you're selling and how suited or skilled or what kind of contacts your consultant has. So hopefully you can do a road test and check on some of that before you sign that agreement. So yeah, that could be something. And that's kind of why I said you really need a team of people, number one, and number two, you got to think long term. This is not going to be a month or 3 months. It's probably 6 to 12 month process while you get your certs and do those things, and longer to get to different manufacturers. So be patient.
Awesome. Well, it looks, I do not see any other questions coming in, but if you do have any before we wrap up today, try to get them into Pete and we will be sure to answer them. But if there are no more questions, I would like to thank once again our series sponsors, Renishaw and Amphenol CIT, for sponsoring today's discussion. And obviously, a massive thank you has to go out to Mr. Pete Borden for today's presentation. As you know, it appears there are no further questions, which means you obviously have answered them with all of the knowledge you've provided, Pete. So thank you so much for everything today. Oh, wait, we do have one more coming in. Oh, just Barbara saying excellent information. So Pete, thank you so much for your time today, and obviously
Happy to help.
answering all of the people's questions.
Yeah. So Tyler's asked me a question here, so you can give him my contact information.
Perfect. Awesome. And yes, this will be available to view once we format it. So you can check for the recording in about 5 to 7 business days. We appreciate everyone in attendance today, and we will be talking to all of you very soon.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Great day, everyone.
Bye.
You can listen to all of our episodes of Manufacturing Matters and Lunch and Learn podcast from the MFG Radio Network on Spotify, Apple Music, and on our websites, todaysmedicaldevelopments.com, aerospacemanufacturinganddesign.com, defenseandmunitions.com, and evdesignandmanufacturing.com.